Rabbi Jacobson here, and we will be speaking about why Kabbalah is a secret. So recently, the word Kabbalah has become very popular, fashionable. Program directors tell me that if you add Kabbalah to the title of a class or to the subject line in an email, you get many more visitors and many more attendees, most likely. So what is it about the Kabbalah that intrigues people? Perhaps you can say it may be connected to its aura of mystique, the secret nature of Kabbalah, that it was always studied in secret. But what exactly is Kabbalah? And I would even say, what exactly is a secret, for that matter? You know, we like the exotic. We like the exotica, things that are not obvious. Some people feel it's like a refreshing breath of air, that they're doing something that's out of the ordinary. There's the regular regimen and boring, tedious monotony of our lives. And here you are, the secrets, the deeper secrets. But I think what we really need to discuss is what exactly is a secret, and why are some things hidden. And I think through that we can understand the deeper meaning and even the surprising secret of what Kabbalah really is. So that's what I'll be addressing. And essentially going on a journey into, like, there was a journey 30,000 leagues under the sea, or 30,000 leagues under the earth. So we're going on a journey. This is not a physical journey, it's a spiritual journey, to plumb the deeper recesses of our psyches, of the cosmos, to understand ourselves in a different way by looking at that which is, we'll call it, the secret part of our lives. And I know for some people the word secret conjures up all kinds of negative things, the ugly stuff, the stuff we're ashamed of, the stuff we do in private, when no one sees. But as we will be discussing, there is that element, but the true secrets and the true hidden mysteries of our psyches, our souls, and we'll call it traveling into the heart of our inner beings, and our psyche is actually quite fascinating. Just like when you travel and you see today we have cameras that go deep under the sea or deep into caves and subterranean caverns, and you discover this fascinating life that's there, even the forces that shape life above the ground. You can think of a volcano being almost like a door that opens up from the belly of earth, and the hot lava and the tremendous heat that lies at the center of our earth core, at the core, and then you see it explode and erupt, and you get that sense, like the geysers in the Yellowstone Park. And you can also say psychologically, and sometimes we have an eruption and we have a expression, whether it could be anger or it can be profound joy, that also reveals and opens up something from our inner belly of our own being. And as I've always talked about, as in contrast to classic Freudian thought that at the heart, at the belly of the human being is a beast, the id, we go with the approach, and I take this as based on a universal Torah psychological approach, that at the belly of who you are is not a beast, is actually an angel, a beautiful elements that are waiting to be released. So we're going to talk about this and the whole idea of secrets and the hidden, and through that come back and understand why is Kabbalah a secret. So I'll begin with a very simple analogy. We talk about secrets. An interesting paradox, and that is that when someone asks you about the weather, or to speak about sports, or about the economy, or about Trump, or about any other lightning rod of our times, we usually have a lot to say. People talk. You see talk radio, people talking, gossiping, conversations about superficial things that really don't have necessarily much meaning, and definitely not life and death significance. And we can talk and talk. We have a lot of words. Just turn on a radio, turn on a TV, Go into the internet and just see the gab, right? What do they call it? The jabber? Yentes. It's called the flow of conversation. When someone comes by contrast and asks you, tell me about yourself, tell me about the real you, what makes you tick, the inner part of yourself, of your psyche, you'll find that people have very few words. Not only because they don't trust someone to share with them, but even with people we trust, we don't have many words. We're a lack of words when it comes to deeper experiences, which seems like an oddity. It seems like ironic, actually, because when it comes to self, the thing you know most, the thing that's closest to you, the thing that matters most to you, the things you love, the things you don't love, the needs you have, the inner needs, it would seem that you have a lot to say. Because this is like what you really live with, the things that really matter, the things that bring you happiness, the things that cause you sadness, your psychological sense of self, your fears, your confidences, your insecurities, the whole works. We find very few words. But when it comes to these superficial things, we can talk and talk and talk and talk. How much can we talk about the weather? Endless. Some people actually find it great because it's a great distraction. We have nothing else to talk about. We could always say, you know what? Let's talk about the weather. It was going to snow. It didn't snow. It may snow. There's always tomorrow. It didn't snow. It's going to turn cold. Oh, it's so cold. Never seen so much cold. Then comes the heat. I mean, great. And then all the other superficial nonsense that we can go on and on and on about. I have nothing against sports. We all love sports. But look at my sports radio. I sometimes listen just to see how millions of people, what they're preoccupied with. And even out of the season, there's the trading season. And then there's the postseason. And there's the preseason. And then there's the season. And then there's the analysis. And this mistake and that mistake. All about what? A game that makes really no difference in anything that really matters in life. So it's not just the game. Now the game has a whole culture around the game. And the analysis before the game and after the game. And they march all the experts of ex-coaches, football coaches to analyze, and halftime reports, and post-game reports, and pre-game reports. The Super Bowl is coming. That's a whole culture of its own, a whole day, a whole week. For some people, it's a whole month, etc., etc., etc. Let's talk about ourselves. Let's talk about our state of happiness. We don't have much to say. Real things. Okay, some people say, well, that's why I go to a therapist. I pay a therapist to listen to me. Most people are not interested in what's going on inside of me, but it's more than that. We really find less words when we have to express a deeper thing. Why is that? So I've discussed this many, many times. It's a fascinating paradox, but it reveals an unbelievable truth that's always vital to hold on to. And here's the rule. The deeper the experience, the less tools and instruments do we have to express that experience. The more casual, the more shallow the experience, the more expression there is. To use the language of the Kabbalists, talk about the mystics, the Kabbalists, Kabbalah, where there's greater light, there's less containers. Where there's more containers, there's less light. Because the intensity of a deeper, intimate feeling simply cannot be contained by just conventional language. So we talk about things that don't have much so-called light and energy in it. You can go on and on and on. But when you talk about something that had, let's say, a very deep impact on you, let's speak both positive and negative, a tremendously positive, joyous moment of awe, a magical moment. And someone say, describe it. You'll say, it's beyond description. That's usually the words we use. We can't really describe it. It's indescribable. You had to be there. You have to see it for yourself. You have to experience it yourself. That doesn't mean we have any words. But we don't have many words because it's the intensity of the experience far overwhelmed, so to speak. And it's like pouring a liquid that completely overwhelms the container in which you want to use, because the intensity of the experience is so much more powerful. The same thing, the negative, trauma. Describe trauma. Describe your feelings. Even after time, it becomes very difficult. We can burst out crying. And we see when people experience trauma, they have no words. They can't even cry. because there's no expression. We'll soon talk about that some more. So that's the interesting thing. The deeper the experience, the more real it is, the more intimate it is, the less containers you have to describe it. So what do we do to describe a more intense experience? We use the language of metaphor. It could be poetry, it could be music, song, other forms of expression. You say, you know what, instead of me describing to you, let me sing you a song. Or let me paint for you, I'll draw for you an image. Then try a visual that will capture that experience. And when that's inadequate, the metaphor language, then we resort to sometimes just one word. You'll say, oy vey. Oy vey can contain more than entire volumes of books when it comes from the guts of your kishkis, from the inner. Or we say, ouch. Or we say, oh my God. Again, positive and negative. Very short, one-word expressions. And then there are experiences that even one-word expression is too much of a container. And sometimes silence. Like I said, shock. When you're in shock, you can't even cry. That's why in the catharsis necessary to heal, you need a stage of shock, then you need to help somebody cry and express their grief. And then go on, God forbid, anyone going through anything like this. Why? Because the experience is so intense, there's no sound. Even sound alone, even the cry or the laugh is just simply too much. So basically, it goes exact disproportion to each other. The more air, the more energy light, the less container. The more container, the less light. And look at the human body and you see it very clearly. Which part of the body has the most intense, concentrated amount of energy and faculties? The head. The head has the brain. It has the olfactory, our smell. It has our sound, our ears. It has our sight. It has our mouth. Basically, the primary senses and the functions of the human being are all concentrated in this head. Now, that doesn't mean the other parts of the body don't have functions. And the head, relatively, is the smallest part of the body. As you travel down the torso, so yes, we have the heart, we have the liver, we have the lungs, we have the diaphragm, we have the kidneys, we have other forces, elements, we have our arms. But there, compare that to the functions in the head, they're far less intense, they're necessary, they're far more functional, they're not as ethereal. The major part of a human being's function, I don't know, basically the hard drive is right over here, the central nervous system. And it's the smallest part. The torso is double, maybe triple the size of the head. And then the legs, which have the least amount of organs, or their legs, yes, there's the genitals, there's other elements there. The legs, of course, have muscles and tendons. But as far as faculties goes, what faculty do the legs have? Not many. And they have the body. So the legs are half. The torso, you could say, is, let's say, a half of the, more than a half. You could say, this is just average, I'm just calculating. If you say the legs are around 50% of the human being, a little more maybe 60%, I would say then 30% is or 25% would be the torso, and the head would be the last 15%. 15%, 25, and 60, something like that. There you have it. The more the energy, the smaller the container. So there you have the anatomy of what a secret is. A secret really is not just we keep a secret because it's confidential, or it's a trade secret, or we're ashamed of it, or we don't want anyone stealing it, or whatever, all the other reasons. A real secret, the secrets that we carry, that lay buried in our hearts, in our inner insides, are the things that are least expressible. But we live in a world of expression. Like Madison Avenue cynics will say, it's not what happened, it's not important what happened, it's important what people think happened. It's the spin. It's after a president speaks or some of this, right away the spinners, the spin doctors start spinning the story. It's the impression people have. How much is invested in the package and how much is invested in the product itself? You tell me. You walk down the street, Fifth Avenue, anywhere, the window dressings, the packaging, the marketing. It's not all bad, but it's basically telling you that people are attracted to externals, very expressive. You can have a lot of noise and glitz, a lot of sizzle, and no steak. right? And if you think about it, many of our even pleasures and lusts and desires, think about it. At the moment of the desire, it's like nothing more powerful. And then afterwards you say to yourself, so what did I gain? I had that moment of pleasure. Nothing lasts. No fruits, doesn't bear fruit. There's no next generation. I'm talking about pure hedonistic pleasure. Obviously, intimacy and sexuality that's translated in a sacred way in a family, building a family, then it's focused and it's being used to something greater than just personal indulgence. But anything that's personally indulgent, anything that is, there's moments, they may be very appealing and very seductive, but there's not a lot of energy that remains from it. It's what it is, and then you need the next high. It's like sugar. A good rush, very pleasant, but there's no substance. We live in a world where unfortunately much of what's going on is not substance. It's the package. It looks good. Others like it. Makes you look good in front of others. The whole garment industry, style, even the art industry. What really determined that a piece of art should sell for $100 million is because there's an elite clientele that want to feel superior. So they've created this culture. Now, I'm not saying these artists aren't great men, but what could have been sold for $500,000, but then nothing exclusive about it. So how much is real and how much is, let's call it, amplified, if not exaggerated? Just to point out how we live in a world where, if you use the Kabbalistic terminology, a world with very, very intense and expanded containers, but sometimes very little light inside. That would be a lot of sizzle, very little steak. Where's the beef? Very many people succeed because they present well. They know how their gift of gab, as I mentioned. They have the way of looking. Now, that doesn't mean every good presenter doesn't have anything to say. Just like the guy that said, just because I'm paranoid doesn't mean no one wants to get me. Not just because somebody's a good presenter doesn't mean they're selling nonsense. But you could sell nonsense. You could have someone that's excellent con artist, knows how to manipulate emotions, and they're selling you packages, and you come home, you unpack it, and you say, piece of garbage, but it'll look good. So the secrets that we carry within us, what really defines our beings, are fundamentally defy natural and conventional expression, which is why we need other language, which is why we need the metaphor or the song or other forms of expression to express that which regular language, regular containers are not good enough. So if you have a container, a little cup, that's good for a certain amount of liquid. If the liquid is very, very intense, much more than this cup, that container is not going to be sufficient. You need different types of containers, not just a larger container. You may need more ethereal containers. Just like someone says to you, okay, I know how to measure my blood pressure. I know how to measure the temperature outside. But how do you measure someone's love? You right away say, one second, it's a good question. Are there instruments to measure love? The answer is you can't use a physical container because love is more ethereal. Love is more of a spiritual thing. You can't use a physical yardstick to measure a spiritual or an emotional or intellectual. Just like someone will say to you, right down this table, let's say 2 feet wide and 4 feet long. Okay, 8 square feet. How many apples can I put on this table? So you'll say, okay, an apple is, let's say, 5 inches. So you make a measurement. Let's say I could put 100 apples on this table. Then I ask you this question. How many ideas can you fit into the mind, to the brain? Now, the brain is much smaller than this table. The brain is a little larger than our palm. And we all know there are more than 100 ideas in our brain, more than 1,000, more than 1,000,000. And no one really knows a number. So you start thinking, okay, one second, what does that mean? It means that the ideas are not containable in the regular container. Ideas don't occupy space quite like an apple does. It occupies space, but in a very different way. Like if you're familiar with the Mathematics 101, the first thing you learn in geometry, literally the first class, there's a point, there's a line, and there's a plane. A point does not occupy space. That's why a point, there are infinite points in any given line. A line is the shortest point, the shortest way to go from one point to another point. But in the line itself, there are infinite points. And of course, the obvious question everyone asks is, what happens if it's a line, 1 inch line, a 2 inch line, a 20 inch line, a 1,000,000-mile line? Do they all have the same amount of infinite points? Something to wrap your head around. Some say yes, because a point doesn't occupy space. The fact that we make a dot on paper, that's just to give us something to hold on to. So you see there that there's a whole different way of measuring things. When you're dealing with intensity, like intense emotions, to say, okay, I'm going to put my love inside of a cup, that doesn't make any sense. Just like someone says, let me touch your ideas. You can't touch ideas. It's not even in that world. So therefore, you need different type of containers, much more subtle containers, like I said, metaphor. So in a world where we measure things by pure size and by pure weight and by length and width and so on, and depth, those are tangible containers, and they can only contain a certain amount of energy. But when you start getting into deeper levels of energy, ideas, emotions, spirituality, love, and so on, then you cannot speak in those terms. You can't use those containers are not enough. That's why conventional language doesn't work. So you need to find a new language, a language that hints to things. And that's the language of the secret world of Kabbalah, the language of the inside world, the inner world, the inside story of our lives and of existence. So you ask, what does Kabbalah mean? You'd think Kabbalah would be translated as secrets. So there is a word called sod. There are four ways of interpreting and understanding an idea in the Torah. One is called the acronym Pardes, which means an orchard. So Pardes has 4 letters. Pei is the pshat, means literal interpretation. That's surface level. Like I would say, this is a table. That's pshat. There's remez, which is allegorical interpretation. Like this table is a metaphor for something. It's a little more subtle type of, you may use the word table like a table of contents. So there it doesn't just mean a table, it means an order of things. Then there is the third drush, the dalet, pez reish da. Drush means the Talmudic, the homiletic. This is the legal and the analysis of an idea in its full glory. And then finally is the samach, pardes, is sod, secret. Secret. And why it's a secret? It's the mystical, esoteric dimension, let's say, within this table. And it's actually 4 steps, you can say 4 dimensions, one rolled in the other, of the same idea. So you can take an idea and say, okay, on the surface level it means this. On a allegorical remez level it means this. On a drush homiletic level it means this. And on a secret, esoteric, mystical level it means as follows. And I'll just use an example. Let's take water. It's raining outside. So rain we know is water. Water is H2O. On a pshat level, it's raining. You put on a raincoat. You protect yourself. Take an umbrella. Or rain waters the fields and makes things grow. Whatever rain is on an ostensible surface level, pshat level. If you go on the remez level, rain, you find, raindrops keep falling on my head. A beautiful song. It's used in poems. It has all kinds of allegorical meaning. You see it in many romantic scenes, suspenseful scenes. Rain adds a dimension. It has a sentiment to it, rain. It could be positive, it could be a little negative, it could be not so negative, it could be a little like foggy type of hinting to some drama. Then you have the deeper Talmudic, rain, its implications, and what the legal matters if it rains, and its technical, scientific dimension to it, and so on. And then there's the mystical. The mystical goes into that rain represents higher spiritual states of chesed, of a flow of kindness. Water is a flow. So you see that you look at it, you can see on the surface of it, you can think the body level, and there's the soul. So everything has a body and a soul. When you read a book, and you see this in analysis of literature, when there's the decomposition or decomposing of literature. So you read the story, the ostensible story, what it means on the surface level. You analyze it a little more, you find the hints. George Orwell wrote 1984. People have been reading all kinds of hints into it. Was he referring to the communists? Then you find the deeper meaning on the drush level. Then you finally come and you find even deeper mystical meanings. I saw an interesting book on Michelangelo's art. What was it called? Secrets of the Sistine Chapel, something like that. And they actually show how the secrets that he hid into it, many of them actually Kabbalistic secrets that he studied with Kabbalists in his Florence, Italy, of his childhood. And you see this all the time, in art especially, and in music, the hints that artists embed within their works. So if you think of it, let's talk about a more scientific level. Water is water, it's wet. We know it's made of H2O, hydrogen, 2 parts of hydrogen to 1 part of oxygen. Hydrogen and oxygen are the elements. Elements are made up of molecules. Molecules are made up of atoms. Atoms are made up of subatomic particles. Subatomic particles are made up of subatomic particles. And how far down the rabbit hole can we go? Who knows? We continue to journey. Has anybody ever seen an atom? No. Can you describe an atom? No. The little image we see in high school that they give us looks like a clump of, not a clump, what do they call grapes? A cluster of grapes with black and white, which is the neurons and the protons and the electrons. Is just a working model to make us have something to do. No one can see an atom because there's no instrument that can measure it. Molecules can be seen, but you cannot see an atom. So right there you have the example. And the atom is the most intense of all energy is in the atom, the splitting of the atom, the fusion and fission. And yet an atom doesn't take up any space, or takes up some subminable space that we can't even measure it. The same paradox. The more energy, the less container. The more tangible it is, the more expressive it is. And that's why it becomes a mysterious world of the subatomic world. Yes, with scientific breakthroughs and different testing and speeding up the particles, as well as heating them, we discover all kinds of their properties, but it's all through extrapolation. So when you go back now to Kabbalah, the secret is the innermost dimension that is less tangible, but far more real, far more defines the phenomenon, or the experience, or the individual, or the element. So if you're talking about the H2O, the molecules, the atoms, the subatomic, then there's the spiritual DNA, the spiritual atoms and subatomic particles that define and shape water. And the same thing with other fire and so on. That's with the Kabbalah. So the Kabbalah is dealing with the engine room. But I asked a question before. So you'd think Kabbalah means secret. These secrets that go beyond the conventional definitions and the containers of our lives, the instruments that we usually use. So you think the Kabbalah means secret? No, Kabbalah means to receive, reception. Okay, that's pretty strange. What does reception and receiving have to do with our discussion? But it's fascinating what it has to do with, because it tells us not just what it is, that it's a secret, it tells us now the secret of accessing the secret. Because the next question is, how do we go there? When it comes to science, scientists are figuring out different ways to measure and to discover the forces that are beneath the surface, that are invisible, but shape all of existence. How do we enter the inner dimension of our own secrets, the secrets of our soul, the secrets of our psyche, the secrets of our love, the secrets of what makes us tick? And as we are a microcosm, the same thing, the secrets of the cosmos, of entire existence. So Kabbalah doesn't just tell us that it's a secret, it tells us how. It's through reception and becoming a receptacle. So you can interpret Kabbalah in 2 ways. That you receive, Kabbalah is based on the reception of a student from a teacher. That's what it means, Kabbalah ish mipi ish. You don't create your own mystical and inner understanding. These are things we are passed on from teacher to student. So inherent in the process of studying, it means it needs to be received from a teacher before you. But the deeper meaning is that we need to be in a state of receptivity. And this is the secret to the secret. As long as you're not in a state of receptivity, you know what you're going to be? You're going to be a product of the outer world of containers. You talk a lot. Like we said, we can talk about the weather. You need to experience the deeper secrets. You need to quiet down your outer containers, your gift of gab, the sizzle, the selling, the pitching, the self-interest involved, you need to get into a state of humility where everything is silenced. Silence is the way to hear your inner voice. So when a person is busy all day, whether they're busy being salesmen, selling something or buying something, or busy socializing, or busy showing off, or busy with friends, all kinds of, all that busyness that I said on the surface level, then that inner secret remains very distant and very hard to access. When you shut down the volume, you lower the volume of all this interference and all this turbulence and all the static of our lives, then what emerges is that inner voice. That's why you have the verse that says when Elijah was waiting, God said, I will appear to you. So the first thing that came, there was a great wind. It says, Lo beruach Hashem, not in the wind. Then came a great thunder. So it says, Lo berash Hashem, not in the thunder, because he thought that, and then came a great fire. And he said, Lo be'esh Hashem, not in fire. So where is God? It says, Koil the Momodako. A subtle, gentle voice. So when you really want to see the intensity of something in its purest form, you know what you look at? Look at a child, a newborn child. They can't speak yet. They can't communicate. They're not selling anything. They're just the purest, innocent form of who we really are. So just as the paradox works one way, that the more expression, the more containers, the less intensity, it works the other way around. The less expression, the more intensity. And that's the most important thing of all. What we call in Hasidic terminology and Kabbalistic terminology, bittul. Suspension of self. Suspension of all these outer containers and all the noise that's being made. And then what emerges is that quiet, gentle, subtle voice of your deepest insides, and which is far more intense than everything you'll ever say and scream about. Now we talk about the Levites and the Kohanim, the priests and the Levites. So it says the Levites served in the temple with song. The priests served in silence. The question is asked, which is greater? Most people would say song. Song is beautiful. It evokes feelings. Silence is just nothing going on. And the answer is no. Song is great and expresses profound ecstasy and profound yearning and profound pleasure and so on. But silence expresses the essence that does not have expression. So when you find someone who's silent in a real experience and they're just completely in awe, that silence has much more power than all the sounds in the world. Well, the sound of silence. And it's more thundering in many ways. And you see it, both in good and positive and negative. And so when someone gives you the silent treatment, someone you love and care about, it's much more painful than when they yell at you. Because yelling, at least you know what they're saying, right? Silence is this, almost like, also on the positive end, you'll see true experiences. You ever have an experience that really touches you? And then you know what? Someone says, so what was your reaction? I was stunned. Ishtaimim, it says, the expression. I was silenced, and I just sat. Sometimes you just say, wow. Not even expression, you just take it in and absorb it. That is far more profound than expression. Now, mind you, that we're going to be talking about this some more. The goal, obviously, is to express the inexpressible. But the first thing you need to distinguish is between expression and non-expression. And that the non-expression has more power than the expression. And that's the process. That when you're sitting before your teacher, or you're studying something, Kabbalah means it's not about you. You put yourself aside. And then what happens is the real you emerges. Not the projected you, the one that going through all these motions and entertaining and all the machinations and entertaining elements of us entertaining a world around us. The real you emerges in that silence and that humility. And that's what the Kabbalah teaches, not just that it's a secret, but how do you access the secret? To access the secret, you have to be able to enter there. How could you enter? You can't enter with noise. You can't enter with all these containers. You need to put aside. You have to almost lower the volume, silence all these loud noises, and get to that subtle, gentle silent voice. So that's why Kabbalah is called Kabbalah, because it's teaching us the method, the way we enter there. Even knowing yourself, you have to silence your own voice that you use all day at work. So for example, Shabbat, what's Shabbat? Shabbos about. All week long, we're performing. All week long, we're working. We are producing. Shabbos comes and says, 6 days you produce, 6 days you create, you work. On the seventh day, God rested. Excuse me. What does it mean God rested? He got tired? No, it means he went back into a state of repose, into a state of going back into his own inner self. Creation is creating something like outside of yourself, building something. So the same thing we do on Shabbos, we try to shut down as much as possible our material investments, our creation, our production. We go back to a silent state of just absorbing, of experiencing the inner as opposed to the outer. Now 6 days a week, not 6 days a week, we're at work, because that's the intention. The purpose of existence is not to remain in that inner place. It's to go into an outer world and bridge the two and come to appreciate, and use expression to express the inexpressible. So Shabbos is meant to inform the other 6 days of the week. That's why Shabbos blesses those 6 days. But there's two different realities, and we each need both. In a way, when we wake up in the morning and we say a prayer, we study something, that's more like the Shabbos of each day. You're focusing more on the inner experience. Then you go out to work. And you work ethically and like a mensch, but it's informed by that inner dimension. People who are really connected to this inner sense of self, and which is ultimately through the study and experience of Kabbalah, they are able to access it all the time, and it becomes that which informs all their activities. They go to work, they see their work as a means to express their inner self, or to express the divine inner self within each of us, within all of existence. So there you have the general picture of what secrets are. Secrets, the real secrets, are really the real you that is often buried or covered up and hidden within the external shells of our lives. And those shells have a tendency to actually continue to conceal those inner sense of self, because that's what their nature is. Their nature is they're defined by expression. They're defined not by silence, they're defined by expression, by the glitz, by the sizzle. The intention and purpose is that we should be able to travel inward, and that inward should inform and express and the inexpressible should be the force that we express. That which is undefined, which is indeterministic, in the language of quantum mechanics, becomes expressed into the deterministic world. So that's ultimately the goal. The ultimate goal is not just to enter those secret places, but to bring those secrets, to reveal them, and the way that we live on the surface level, informed by and directed and guided by the inner voice, that inner silent voice. So imagine if you have both worlds. You can sing a song, you can express a statement, but it's informed by, and its spirit is driven by, an inner silent place. Those are people who are truly integrated, that their inner silence, their inner core, is what defines their lives. And all their outer expression is just an expression of that inner core. That would be the ultimate Kabbalist, the ultimate Mekubal, Kabbalah. But by definition, therefore, Kabbalah is a secret. Why? Because, not just a secret because it was only the elite that studied it, because it's not appreciated on that outer dimension, because it's very easily abused. You can just start Kabbalah, and you feel, like I said earlier, it's exotic, secrets, this secret, that secret. Kabbalah, by definition, requires humility, and humility requires a certain discreet, modest, dignified approach. It's not something, okay, we're going to sell Kabbalah now. That's the latest fad. It's the exact opposite. So there was a time in history where Kabbalah was studied, as the Mishnah says, very privately, one-on-one, only one person, because, not only because it's a secret, but because it can't be appreciated. It's not meant to be a mass-produced commercial thing. It's meant to be a personal, intimate experience. Intimacy is experienced very privately. But as generations went on, especially the Holy Arizal, in the 16th century, and then his successors, felt the need and saw that the darkness of the world was getting so intense, materialism was becoming so powerful, science was displacing faith, that they saw the need that now the time has come to begin a mitzvah to reveal this inner. And even though there was the risk that it would be sometimes abused or misunderstood or misused, but you do anything, in the classic analogy of the Baal Tanya, Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, whose Yartzeit we celebrated, we honored last week. He said once, when one of his students or colleagues said that, look, people are going to not appreciate these inner secrets. They'll just trample over them. And as divine providence would have it, as they were walking, they saw a piece of Hasidic literature, a page, on the floor, which is like desecration. So this colleague said to the Rabbi Shneur Zalman, you see, it's on the floor. It's like it was symbolic of not being appreciated. It's like jewels, most precious jewels are on the floor. Meaning that, and the Rabbi Shneur Zalman gave the beautiful analogy, sad but also beautiful analogy of the child. King, the great king, had one child, the heir to the throne, falls deathly ill. And the doctor has given up hope. Doctors from all over the world, nobody can save this child. Finally, one doctor from somewhere, from some obscure place, comes and says, there's one hope left. The king, who had, of course, the most precious jewels on earth, had the most precious jewel in his crown was a very rare stone. He says, if you crush that stone and you take the powder and mix it with water and try to force it between the clenched teeth of the comatose child, even if one drop gets in, it may save his life. They asked the king without hesitation, what does he need his crown? What does he need his kingdom for, his empire, without his child? So immediately they took the stone, and on a question we didn't know for sure, and much of it would drop on the floor, like that page on the floor, it would spill. But one drop goes into him, it was worth it. And that was his analogy that yes, we will take the crown jewel, the most expensive, which is the inner dimension of the most intimate secrets of this wisdom, the secret of the soul. And until now, this would have been given only to very few, select few who are worthy, who are humble, who would not abuse it, who wouldn't turn it into a business. But because life and death is at stake here, we're dealing with a generation that is spiritually comatose. Like this child, you do whatever it takes. And if you need to, you take even the most precious inner dimensions of the secrets and of the deepest secrets of existence, and you allow everybody to study it. Some of it may spill, it's true, but some of it may save lives. I, for one, can say that without these teachings, I don't know if I'd be who I am today. I don't know if I'd be alive. I don't know if I'd be maybe physically alive, but spiritually, definitely not. So this is one of the reasons that which was such a secret, so intimate. Again, secret not because of copyrights or trade secrets, because by definition, it's not something that you just experience on the surface level. It's not just walking down the street and just, okay, hey, why not? Let's get a drink of water. Let's have a coffee. It's not superficial. That's why it was really so preserved to maintain its integrity. But when it's necessary, in a world that has become increasingly materialistic, with so much leisure, so much competition, so many vices that seduce us, whether it's sexuality, whether it's entertainment, whether it's this nonsense, that nonsense, so many things, you need to have a competitive force that touches the deepest part of your soul. So this secret song, the song of silence, is taught to us with the expectation and the hope that some of it will get into our clenched teeth and revive and awaken us. And that's the power that it has. Now, of course, there's another reason, is because before the dawn is always the darkest before the dawn. As the dawn of the Messianic era breaks, the Zohar says that before that we will have a taste, like we taste on Friday of the foods and the delicacies of Shabbat, Shabbos. So we have a taste of the future secrets that will be revealed. And using the expression that the book of Isaiah says, and you're well, let's start the way. That nothing will, that there will not be a kanaf, a garment that will conceal your face. The student will see your face directly. That means, at this point, the deepest secrets sometimes have to be covered. That's why the Holy of Holies is covered. That's why Moses, when he came down from the mountain, his face was such a glow. It had to be concealed. For this reason that I said, because a very materialistic, a very coarse world cannot appreciate such intensity. It's like trying to look at the sun without shades. But that says, in the Messianic age, at the end of times, and the world will be refined, that you'll be able to look at the face of the teacher, of the master. And other expressions that talk about, in the book of Song of Songs, by the revelation of the deepest secrets. Yishakenu min Neshikas Piu, Rashi, the commentary. It says, Yishakenu, kiss you with the kisses of my mouth. He says, those are the secrets of love. There'll be the revelation of the inner secrets of this wisdom. That will be revealed. Because we have done enough work that we can then access it. Obviously, with the goal, the way to do so is through the humility I was describing in the Kabbalah. But the bottom line goal is that we will ultimately reveal these secrets, and they will emerge, and they will ultimately be accessible. So that's why these ideas are taught today. That still means that each of us have to learn to appreciate it and not abuse it. But nevertheless, we are given the opportunity because of this necessity. I can tell you from my own experience, much of my teachings, much of the things I share are coming from these teachings as I've learned them from my teacher, who is a great Kabbalist and a great mystic and a great Hasidic master, sage, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, who in turn, his father was a great Kabbalist, his father-in-law was the previous Rebbe, going back to Rabbi Shneir Zalman 7 generations later, and going back to the Maggid of Mezrich and the Baal Shem Tov, in an unbroken chain, all the way back to the Arizal, and many others in between, all the way back to Moses at Sinai, where the secrets were first revealed. And even Abraham, attributed to Abraham is the first work, most people feel, is the first Kabbalistic work called the Book of Formation, Sefer Yetzirah, very cryptic and mystical, but written by Abraham, composed by Abraham. So there's a lot more to be said on this, but the point that I'm making here is that we have these masters and teachers who have taught it, and the message that it teaches us is really the secrets of your soul. It's really a blueprint of what makes you tick. Like I mentioned before, just like there's subatomic particles, there's the DNA, the spiritual of the genome. Just like on a cellular structure, there's the spiritual genome that each of us has, and also that of the cosmos. So when you study these ideas, you're studying things that are secret, that are intimate, that are not measurable with yardsticks and with conventional instruments and tools, but doesn't mean they make them less real, it makes them more real. Because today we know that these invisible forces are what shape our lives. God forbid, one mutation on that level. So once upon a time, size mattered. Everything was what you saw. Something bigger was stronger. No. Today, what is smaller is stronger. The atom packs more energy than anything in existence, because the nuclear energy concentrated in those microscopic and minute particles is far more intense. I think it was Sir Arthur Eddington, I believe, who gave the analogy when he was asked about the beginning of quantum mechanics, and they were talking about subatomic particles. No one has ever seen them. How do you come to all these weird conclusions that defied the conventional logic and counterintuitive to conventional physics and science? No one's ever seen them. And he gave the analogy of the fisherman who spread his net across the seas of the world and then began to gather different fish and began documenting what he caught, the different species and the different colors and the different types and the different sizes. And at the end of the day, after his long analysis, long research and measurements, he came to a conclusion. There are no fish in the sea that are shorter than a half-inch long. And he was about to go make a big announcement that he discovered there are no fish in the sea that are shorter than a half-inch long. His little daughter, however, like with the emperor no clothes, said, "What are you talking about, Daddy? I've seen fish with shorter." And she didn't have any research behind her and no science. She just saw little goldfish and other fish that are shorter than half-inch long. And became obvious what his mistake was. What was the mistake? His net had ropes that were half-inch spaces. So all the fish that were shorter than half-inch long fell back into the sea. So all he needed to do is make a statement like this, that when you use a net with half-inch spaces, you're never going to catch fish that are shorter than a half-inch long. But who needs a scientist to tell us that? The point that Eddington was making was that it's all about what tools you use. Someone say, I don't believe in love. Show me love. If you show it to me on a screen, you show it to me in under a microscope or a telescope, I'll accept it. You need different tools to experience love. You need to be a person with a heart, and you feel someone who's loving to you. One of the Hasidic Rebbes, the fifth Chabad Rebbe, when he was a child, he was playing with his older brother, the Reb Zalman Aaron, Reb Shalom Ber, were playing as children. And what do children do? They play what they see their parent. Their father was a great Rebbe. So one of them, Reb Zalman Aaron, dressed up like a chassid, like a disciple, and he came to his brother, Reb Shalom Ber's children, and says, Rebbe, he came to him like a chassid to a Rebbe. They were playing chassid Rebbe, follower, a disciple and teacher. And he says to the Rebbe, to his brother, he says, so what is a Jew or what is a human being? So his brother says, a human being is fire. So the brother, Reb Zalman Aaron, grabs his brother's hand and says, if you're fire, why don't I get burned? What was his answer? When fire touches fire, it doesn't get burned. Fire touches an object that's not fire, it will burn. So it all comes down to what tools you use. You want to experience fire in a real way, you have to be fire yourself. You want to experience love, you have to have love within you. A stone is not going to experience love from a human being. The point matter is it's all about the instruments, the kelim. So certain containers are just not fitting. They're not fitting. Just like I said before, the apples on the table. Ideas are ethereal. By nature, they are subtle, and they have to be looked at and measured in a different way. That's how you measure ideas. Feelings also. And definitely on the spiritual dimension. So the Kabbalah talks about that inner map, the map of the inner you, the inner world, what's going on beneath the surface. And the parallels are fascinating, by the way, between Kabbalistic mystical teachings and quantum mechanics and the world of the subatomic. Very, very fascinating. Including even in the dimension of things that is called, they call the quantum mind or the quantum brain. On a psychological level, our unconscious or superconscious. The Kabbalah talks a lot about the superconscious and how the consciousness emerges from the superconscious. So this is not a class to talk about the ideas of Kabbalah. I've done that in other classes, and if you want links, just go to meaningfullife.com and search or send us an email. At our site, meaningfullife.com, we'll send you some links. But here I'm talking more about the essential teaching itself, which is the teaching of the secrets. Now, for a person who travels in that place comfortably, they are comfortable with secrets. They don't see it as a secret like, something. It still requires different tools to access. But that's the comfortable place. And frankly, I remember when I wrote Torah Meaningful Life, the publisher told me, remember, Rabbi Jacobson, today everybody's comfortable with the invisible. Their phones, computers, television. The invisible drives our lives. The invisible guides our lives. Every time you talk to someone, you're not dealing with a wire, or you're dealing with invisible forces that are being manipulated, whether it's the airwaves, sound waves, light waves. On the same level, on the human level, the DNA, the cellular, the chromosomes, and as I spoke about the subatomic, all these are invisible forces, but they are what gives the power to the microchip. They give the power to all these communication devices and to all the advancements in technology. How is it possible that on a small microchip today you have more power? 50 years ago you would have needed 2 blocks or 10 blocks of computing power of machines, because as we get to more echos, more quality, we need less quantity. And we get more quantity, there's less quality. So today, little things that are tiny carry more power than once upon a time something that was so big. Remember those early cell phones? Those big. But look where we're going. So these are all lessons in our own lives about the invisible and understanding and the map of the invisible realities. And learning, yes, to express the inexpressible and to define the undefinable. So be able to express your deepest feelings in words. It's not easy to do. But when you are able to be humble and have the Kabbalah within you, when you relate to things in that type of way of absorbing instead of exuding, that bittul, that humility, that suspension of self is what allows you to really experience everything. Because without that, it's you. You may be a great person, but you're only as great as you are. When a person suspends themselves and they become a channel for something greater than themselves, then they can channel things that are far greater than you are. And that's the key to all of this, is becoming a channel, is becoming a conduit for realities that are greater than ourselves. But then we become part of it because it's an expression of our innermost self. Not the innermost self that we think we are, the projected self that performs, that entertains, that produces, that makes a lot of noise, but that quiet, that's cold mamadaka, that little silent, subtle voice inside you. And everybody knows what that is. In a way, it's extremely purifying to be able to touch that innocent place within us. That place that was not jaded by vanity or ego or hurt by others. Very pure place. You know, it could be the rosebud of Mr. Cain in the classic film that some consider the greatest film of all time. Whether it is or not, that I'll leave up to you, Citizen Kane. But the rosebud, the reflection, the memory of the pure snow, of the pure innocence of childhood, in a way something that we're all seeking with all our ambitious pursuits to touch that pure place. Sometimes when you have that, when that experience, then you realize everything I've been doing was to have that, reconnect to that place. And then bridge it into that outer world. So have sizzle, but the sizzle should be a real sizzle reflecting the steak, not the other way around. That the sizzle and the outer expression should be an expression of that inner secret place. So secrets, good secrets, are what we're looking for. The negative secrets, the things that the ugly side of our lives, the dark side, the people that we're ashamed of, it's a different discussion. It's not for here. That's not the secrets I'm talking about. I'm talking about secrets that purify you, that sanctify you, that make you feel uplifted, that are empowering, not demoralizing. And that's the secret of Kabbalah. The Kabbalistic secret, this is the study of the secrets through the ability to receive, the ability to suspend oneself and to allow these deeper truths to come into you. Today, the study of Kabbalah is through the study of Hasidic thought. I've dedicated my entire life to translate these ideas, to make them accessible. We have many programs that talk about this. Every Sunday night I have a thing called My Life, Chassidus Applied, that takes these teachings and applies them to real life situations, whether it's dealing with our own inner struggles, family issues, other challenges that we may have. And of course we have this Wednesday night class, and we have a thing that goes out now twice a week called Soul Workout. These are like short emails and short videos that you can use as tools, life skills, to be able to work out your soul, to exercise it. So please take advantage of all these offerings. They're free, most of them. Some of them lead you to places that, yes, may cost something, but it's well worth it. You can check it out all at meaningfullife.com. It's an honor to be able to be that type of conduit, to be that type of link in the chain, to pass on what I received, so then you can pass on what you receive, and we all become, in that sense, Kabbalah, Makablim, recipients that are carrying on the chain from one generation to the next, trying to preserve the integrity and reveal these deep, innermost secrets that make us tick, the powers that make us tick. So please stay in touch. You can email us, share, like, follow, using all the technologies. We're on Facebook, as you can see, live, and as well as YouTube, Instagram, and all the other social media. Some of them I don't even know how to pronounce. But we're trying to use all the channels to get this message out. Please share it. Please pass it on. Give us your feedback, any suggestions, any critique. We welcome it all. It's been an honor and a pleasure. We're here every Wednesday night. Next Wednesday, the class will not be live and local. It will be only broadcast online, but there will be a class every Wednesday, but it just will not be live and local. We will return 2 weeks live and local and continue this journey. And everyone be blessed. And may your secrets shine forward, your unique light, illuminating and warming your environment and the world around you. Everyone be blessed. Thank you so much.